think we should be ready to go. Hello, everyone. For those who are just tuning in, you are seeing the South Florida Tech Podcast. Thank you so much for everybody who is watching online with us today on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on all of our social media. For those that have not seen this before, the South Florida Tech Podcast is a weekly show where we bring you the awesome, innovative people building our South Florida tech community. Each week, we'll introduce you to one of the Sunshine State's top tech leaders, learn more about who they are, what they do, and have some fun conversation along the way. Our podcast is, of course, presented by the Palm Beach Tech Association, a nonprofit dedicated to building South Florida into a tech hub. And I'm your host, Joe Russo, President and CEO. And I am joined by my illustrious co-host, Joanna Mikkola from Wyncode as well. Joe, if you want to say hi and introduce yourself.
Great. Hi, everyone. Just like Joe said, really happy to be here, CEO, co-founder of Wyncode Academy. We're helping train career changers in software development and UX UI design, and in turn, helping build this amazing South Florida tech community and beyond, now that everyone is remote, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. Super happy to be here and great to have this wonderful guest, Yuda.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
So we got the Joe and Joe show here today.
That's right.
So with that too, I need to give a shout out to our sponsors before we dive right in. Thank you to our podcast sponsor, Emerge Americas. Each year, global enterprises, disruptive technology, and lead startups are highlighted at Emerge's premier event, Connecting the Americas. It's held in Miami Beach. Today it's hosted over people from over 40 countries and featured over 250 speakers from around the world. They're transforming our South Florida tech hub by connecting entrepreneurs, investors, and business executives. So thank you so much to Emerge for supporting the podcast and for everything they're doing to build South Florida into a tech hub. Today, we are really lucky to have a guest who has got all sorts of experience and success lining his resume, but we're going to be talking about some of the present and the future that he is working towards in the South Florida tech community. Yuda Saydun. He's the president and founder of Cvent, a cybersecurity-focused solutions provider that helps chief information security officers transition from a classic identify and remediate situation to an AI-driven preemptive posture, so being more proactive than reactive. He's also a board member at University of Miami's Institute for Data Science and Computing, and also chair of the Miami-Dade Beacon Council's Technology Committee, so their economic development office there down in Miami-Dade County. He has an MBA from UCLA, which allowed him to start his entrepreneurial career and be recognized as one of UCLA Anderson School's top 100 inspirational alumni. Now that is a success point right there. He's had a career from American Express, Tech Data, Wyncode, Xerox, and he's kickstarted and scaled highly successful business units, integrated and acquired companies, overseen outsourced IT and technology services, and launched dozens of new products and services. And on top of that, he's a mentor, founder, director, investor in tech startups and early stage companies, and he's been instrumental in seed growth and follow-on rounds of funding. I mean, talk about a guy who's been around and done some cool things. We're really lucky to have Yuda on the podcast today. So thank you so much for being here and being part of it.
Oh, no, thank you guys. Thank you very much for inviting me. And it all sounds great on a resume. It's all about doing the right things at the right time and trying to also contribute to the environment where we are. So very happy to be here and engage in this conversation with you guys.
So if you'd like, I would love for you to just briefly, or not so briefly, up to you, introduce yourself. What do you do now professionally? And then obviously there's a few things that we'll be talking about today from a community standpoint as well, about what you're doing out in the tech community and the tech industry and your day-to-day.
Sure, yes, absolutely. So I have been a business exec for a long time, a corporate exec. And then over the last 10, 15 years, I have transitioned towards much more of an entrepreneurial activity. And especially here in South Florida, have been part of this humongous change that has happened since the early 2000s, which Johanna and your company as well are part of. And so it's been amazing to ride this wave and to see how far Florida has come, South Florida in particular, and enjoying it all along. What I do now is really interact with companies, with, let's say, medium and large companies, to bring them additional solutions, because cybersecurity has really become a misnomer. It's really cyber insecurity. People invest hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in it, and then they get breached anyway, and it's in front pages. So the bad guys do the awareness building for cybersecurity companies. And we try to help execs to plug the gaps, because bad guys have access to the same tools as we do, but they have more time on hand, so they're able to play and to experiment, and they only need to hit one time to make it break. So that's what I do. It's a nice, very nice cat and mouse game, and really fits with my desire to keep learning and learning and learning and intellectually engaging. So that's what has me thrilled right now, and very active in this field.
That's awesome. So I want to definitely talk about that cat and mouse game, and especially the power of AI and how you guys are leveraging it. But before that, I mean, whoa, like executive to entrepreneur, all of that, like just hearing that bio, like you have such a wealth of experience and knowledge, and also even talking about like from coast to coast, like going California to Florida and talking about that transformation. But can you talk a little bit about the transition from, there's two transitions to talk about there, but let's talk about going from being a West Coaster to now being in Florida and seeing the transformation happen here. What are the things that inspire you the most, that are kind of positives, and where do you see that we really still need to double down and make sure that we're building in an area to build a strong ecosystem?
Sure. Well, it is two very different worlds, as we know, California and Miami. However, they both have their attractiveness, and Miami has become amazing. I got here actually in 1982, so that's been quite a while ago. And at that time, Lincoln Road was really desolate. And so it's huge change. I remember the first time I went around with the mayor of Miami Beach when they were planning to plant the trees along Ocean Drive and so on. But I really got into Miami when I started sailing. So that was in addition to traveling north-south all the time for business. I got into Miami when I started sailing, and that was absolutely great. And then getting involved and participating in building something. Whereas in California, things are built and people are quite a bit more, how should I say, the buzz is wonderful, but the competitiveness and the level of collaboration among people is very different. And so there's much more of a community building here, and I'm enjoying that. And again, being part of building something is really a thrill.
Yeah, I so relate to that. I mean, when we looked at launching Wyncode, we really wanted to go away from a tech hub for exactly that reason. One, to help be part of really contributing to the growth of something, and then also knowing and now seeing and having the hindsight to see how collaborative and supportive an ecosystem like this is. So that's really cool. Yeah, great. So do you want to talk a little, or Joe, did you have a question?
Yeah, no, I wanted to probably dive into the same thing you were looking to dive into about what the Beacon Council's tech committee have been up to. Obviously, that's something you've been working on for, throughout COVID, especially. But maybe you can dive into that, and I would love to create this as a two-parter, because I want to talk a little bit about Miami Tech Works a little bit later as well. But maybe just tell us what the Beacon Council is, what they're doing as far as the tech committee, and then we can dive into Miami Tech.
Sure. I guess just as an intro, it's the public-private economic development agency for Dade County. And I think it's a little bit of an unknown gem. Obviously, I just spent 2 years intensely there, but it's not as visible in the community to my taste, and it's not as well recognized for all the things they're doing. In particular, the team there, Christine, Yap, Mike himself, Maria in marketing, and Christina also in marketing. So it's an amazing team, and they are fully dedicated to encourage, enhance, advance Miami as a global destination, South Florida actually, as a global destination for tech companies. So whether it is helping inbound companies select Miami versus New York or Tampa or Atlanta, or retain companies, just like the council did right now, about 4 or 5 months ago, when companies were in difficulties after the crisis, or develop the talent. So there's a huge emphasis on developing talent, and actually the original thrust for the first half of last year and first quarter was to put together a large-scale initiative to make a major investment in Miami in terms of AI talent development hub. And then when the crisis hit, the group totally changed the focus and looked at what can we do immediately for the recovery and the takeoff. And that's how Christine in particular was also very instrumental in this. We launched a challenge to the members of the tech committee, that's about 220 members, to come up with some ideas that can be done and completed and launched within 3 months. And that's really the result you've seen about 3 weeks ago with the announcement that the council made. And so the amazing part of that was that the whole thing came together very naturally, very organically, and as a community effort with people really working together, coming up with ideas, volunteering, moving the ball forward nonstop. And so it's been a very nice experience to see this. And basically 3 different initiatives came out of it, which have now been launched. The one that you just mentioned is the Miami Tech Works, which is a portal to upskill and reskill people who may be already in technology or who want to transition into technology. So we can talk a little more about that in a moment. Another one, which is quite nice also, is the social distance detector, which is a computer vision application, open source, totally free, that allows whoever is walking by to identify themselves on the large screen. It works a little bit like the yellow flashing signs that tell you you're going 55 in a 25-mile zone, right? And then you auto police yourself. And that's the way it's supposed to work, in that it captures public streams, not to stay away from privacy and those sorts of things, and then can show, whether it's an airport or on Lincoln Road, can show people who are distant in a green rectangle and people who may be too close to others in a red rectangle, and they can decide whether they want to separate or not, but that's the information that's given. And also it's capable of identifying people who are walking in the same direction at the same speed as possibly a couple, and therefore not put them into red rectangles. And the third one is actually a collaboration between 3 of the local universities, Miami-Dade College, FIU, and University of Miami, for a post-disaster cyber recovery collaboration that will put together guidelines as well as practice for whatever the next emergency may be in our area. So those are the 3 initiatives that came out and that are being launched right now and that are expected to gain additional speed over the next weeks.
That's amazing. I mean, I just talked about having a supportive ecosystem, and it's amazing that there are, the tech committee and Beacon Council and people like yourself working to be so responsive and thoughtful in how we support the community through what is such a, unprecedented, crazy, weird, wonderful time, right? Like,
yes.
We're all facing unique and new challenges. And so that's been really great. And we're super happy to be one of the partner organizations for Miami Tech Works, which has been great. So super excited about that. How do you bring everyone together? Like, do you feel that the collaborative and supportive nature of South Florida is its competitive advantage? And what else needs to be done in order to be more supportive or collaborative? Or is it where, it sounds like, everything you just listed that's a lot. And it sounds really impactful. Like, how can it happen so quickly? Yeah.
That's where I'm saying that more credit is due. I think we underestimate ourselves. We've had a little bit of a trouble getting out of our self-limitations. I think it's a lot of it is self-limitation, especially with the point you just made of everything's now connected internationally. Distance has disappeared, right? So, and there are talented companies here. There are talented individuals. There's no reason why this can't go now to the next level. And I really think, and that's been discussions that I've had with Christine at the Beacon Council, is that it's time to drop those limits and step fearlessly, a little further fearlessly. Obviously, we're in crisis and lots of limitations are around, but I think that that would be, in my mind, the next step, because we've always talked about lack of talent. Well, now there's all sorts of talent. There's lots of instruction. There's lots of people who are starting and being successful with their companies. And so we talked about lack of capital, where there's plenty of capital and there's large groups of capital that are moving their headquarters to South Florida for tax and sunshine. And so that's in place. We have a very committed group of foundations and private wealth also. We have great institutions in education. So really, I think Florida is underestimated and underappreciated for what it can be. And that's my current feeling after 38 years here. So, and I'm very enthusiastic about what can be done. Actually, I do have 2 kids in California, both in private equity, venture capital, both computer science grads and successful entrepreneurs and so on. And I do travel back and forth, and it's a discussion we have with them too. Hey, there's something good in Miami. And actually, one of them is visiting frequently and looking at what companies she may find to support, invest, encourage, etc.
That's great.
So one of the things too I wanted to dive into, you're obviously some guy who works a lot with startups too, which is very admirable because not too often do people such as yourself really look to take the time, and it does take time to invest back into the future companies here in South Florida. What are some of the examples of some of the successful stories you've been able to come across with companies, either in the last couple of years or even in the past, that have had a chance to take root in South Florida? And maybe what are some of those stories that you can share with us?
Well, it's interesting because, as many people have already said, when you're investing, you have to have a portfolio, and by definition, 80% or more are going to fail, which has been my experience too. Several have failed at the time of the music looming because of not having had the right copyrights. Others have failed because they didn't have the right market fit. One went public, which was great, a local company here that went public. Another one actually sold to a California company that then went public, and value of the shares went up like 10 times over a year. Those are the kinds of stories, and there's few that are still ongoing that keep me entertained, let's say. But the good part, I think, also is now the emphasis is changing. I think that technology has become a common denominator. It's table stakes, right? And in fact, I think AI is so important. It's going to be a competitive table stakes. Again, it's going to be a competitive must-have, both for individuals, companies, and the region. Because in the end, if we don't have it, others are investing in it, whether it's China or Amsterdam or New York or California. And soon, being able to handle AI is going to be similar to doing Excel or Word or PowerPoints. It's really going in that direction. And so having people who are able to compete in that world and to add that element to the companies they're building, in my mind, is going to be key. And of course, then we get into a whole discussion about how do you do that ethically? How do you avoid privacy issues? All that. So the aspect that's interesting me most in AI, besides obviously applying it to cybersecurity, is what are the ethical, what are the human implications? How can this whole momentum be built with the human factor in mind also?
I had a quick follow-up on it. So I was recently listening into, it was the Endeavor Scale Up Summit, which was all virtual. They did an amazing job. And there's a really prominent investor there who, was an original investor in Facebook, and he's well known. His last name is McNamara. But, he talked about uses of AI right now and saying that on the consumer level, most AI uses is predatory. It's not to benefit the consumer. The consumer has no way to leverage AI into their own benefit. So, cybersecurity, use of AI in cybersecurity is obviously, I feel like there's obviously a protection for consumers there, but do you see, like, what are some opportunities there? And do you see that as something really important? And do you see it shifting there so that, I could use AI to my benefit instead of using a service? Or what are your thoughts on that general comment? Do you feel like it is generally predatory right now?
Well, totally, yes. And especially when you've heard the expression, if you're not paying for the service, you are the service, or if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. You've heard that expression. Yeah. That's very true. And there's a lot of discussion going on around that. And there's already a few startups. Actually, I have a friend who actually was also an early investor in Facebook, and about 8 years ago tried to start a company that would monetize your private data. So if anybody was using your data, you would get a fraction of a cent, a little bit like the DRM for music and so on. Didn't go anywhere.
But I love that idea. How did it not go anywhere?
Exactly. And so now that concept is coming back up again. And because there's been so much emphasis on privacy and so many breaches that have exposed our data, and that's ongoing. I also think that the new privacy screens that Apple has put into iOS 14 is very interesting. Probably saw that too. Within an hour of having installed it, I went to the statistics and it had stopped 220 trackers from tracking me.
Wow.
That's amazing. I don't remember which one it was, but there was one company that just went to one website. They had put 88 trackers. All right, so wow. That is humongous. And there's people who are making hay with our identity and by tracking all of our steps on the web, every single thing that we see, how many seconds. Did you see The Social Dilemma?
I haven't watched it yet, but it's there. It's on my, you would recommend it?
Yeah, I recommend it, yes.
It's on my watch list, so I'm getting to it.
You're not learning anything new, but it's like, oh my God, it's really there, and this is the way it works, and oh wow, it's amazing. They have it all together. And now the dangerous thing is that it's no longer even humans; it's the AI that's performing and improving itself through machine learning and deep learning, and so it's programmed to make it even more effective. So besides, going offline totally, I just say we got to be very careful where we give our data and so on. So it's a very interesting world right now.
Yeah. So a couple things too, beyond that, I mean, I keep track of every online account I have and know what I have and what I don't have at any one point, just to try and do that, because it is so insane right now how good these AI the bots are at trying to hack you. And it's funny. I was my girlfriend this weekend was showing me some emails. Was like, "What is this?" And like, that's somebody trying to hack you right now. And it's just so many of these things happen on a daily basis. But I want to transition actually to a little bit about you for a second, because you have lived on 3 different continents, and you've obviously seen a lot of different cultures and a lot of different people. How has that influenced you as a professional and as a person, kind of seeing so much of the world and then being able to put that back so much into what you do on a daily basis?
Very interesting. First of all, it's interesting because yes, I did live and work on several continents, learned a few languages. The greatest part of that is being able to relate and talk with people in their own language when I visit, and read books in their original language, whether it's a Bertolt Brecht play or a French Sartre reflection, whatever. To read them in their language is wonderful. One over a winter break, I actually had, I don't know Chinese, but I actually had 7 translation of the Tao and one in the original ideograms, and I was reading them all to try to piece together the meaning of each line. But that's anecdotal. What it does actually is that initially, having been international, pigeonholed me into international positions during my career, my corporate career. And every year it was, hey, we have a position in Buenos Aires. Thank you. How about Madrid? No, thank you. Tokyo? No, thank you. Paris, etc. So it was every time, and I had moved around already as a kid with following my parents, so I was interested in, and that's why I stayed so long in Florida, and that's why I also transitioned much more into the community work to be able to establish roots and be part of this region. So it's got, I'd say, 2 different aspects. One is the very positive ability or very positive interest in the different cultures, being able to understand their literature, their plays, their music, and so on. The other one is also this wish to counterbalance that with establishing deeper roots here in Florida.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's and where are you from originally? I meant to ask.
Istanbul, Turkey.
Istanbul, Turkey. Okay, wonderful.
And then I grew up in Vienna, Paris, Brussels, then went to Latin America, and then UCLA, and then here.
Wow.
Totally random, but I'm from Finland originally, and the most popular kind of fast casual food is kebab. So Turkish kebab. So there's a small pocket of Turkish community in little Finland, which is funny. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Great. Awesome. So we always like to wrap up the podcast with what we like to call a little rapid fire to learn even more about you and what's going on. You have to answer quickly. So that's why you don't have time to think of the perfect answer, just the truth.
Okay.
So was wondering, and I see lots of books behind you, so I can only imagine what your nightstand is. But what is the book that's currently on your nightstand right now?
The Overstory by Richard Powers. Have you heard of it?
Haven't. Is it? Would you recommend it? Are you loving it?
I absolutely recommend it. It just won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. It's an extraordinary book with great writing about trees, forests. It's actually 9 stories around the world about trees and how people interact with trees.
Love it.
Different centuries, different geographies. So it's a wonderful book. So I would very much recommend it. Yes. Of course, beyond that, on my other pile on my Kindle, there's dozens of other books. We can talk about that any other time. Yeah.
What is your most productive time of day and why?
Probably 6 to 8 in the morning and then 6 to 8 in the evening. Both because there's less stuff happening, there's less distraction, and then being able to get going early in the morning, actually sitting outside is very energizing.
Bookending the day, that's great.
Yes.
What time do you go to bed?
Oh, pretty late, 11:30.
Okay, and what time do you wake up?
5:30.
Early riser. What is, of course, other than this one, what is your favorite podcast, or is there a podcast that you listen to regularly?
Yes, Aspen Ideas to Go. I don't know
Aspen Ideas to Go.
Institute. It's just an amazing thought leadership on global issues, policies, social reflection from all over international. They have groups in Europe, in Asia, in Africa, and of course, DC and Aspen. I really recommend it.
Great, that's awesome. I'll check that out too. And is there a motto or a quote or a mantra that you live by? And if so, what is it?
There's so many. But I guess I'd go to 2 major figures. One is our good old Bezos and every day is day one. I think that's a great one. Another one is Apple's founder, and that's stay hungry, stay foolish. I think that's very, very relevant to what we're doing, what we want to do here. So stay hungry, stay foolish. I love that one.
Love it. Thank you so much. You're so inspiring.
Yeah.
You definitely are living those mottos.
You are too. Excuse me. You've been doing some wonderful stuff. So you're inspiring too. And both you, Joe, you are starting some new. I like your perspective on South Florida, not just a particular niche of the region. So
we all need to come together.
Yeah, we're fortunate to have Joe bring the community together. It's awesome.
Yeah. So with that, I want to give you the last word. What's one what's one layer of advice you might have for tech community and our tech industry here in South Florida?
I think that we talked about this. I think Florida is a special moment. It's really time to dare to break out and break stereotypes and shoot higher. I really think it's time for the community to step up. You know, he talks about moonshots, blah, 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 but it's really, there's a saying, right, that the light bulb was not invented by optimizing a candle, right? It's time to really think and jump. And there's plenty of people who are doing it. So I really am encourage that.
Awesome. Well, with that, we're at time today. Thank you so much, Yuda, for joining us on the podcast. For those that want to learn more about who we are, what we do, you can go to palmbeachtech.org. We also want to thank our producing sponsors at Media Ops, the premier global media platform for technical communities. Thank you to Alan and Brian out there. And if you want to learn more about them, you can go to devops.com, Security Boulevard, Container Journal. They do a lot of really great content out there for tech communities around the world. So thank you to them. And of course, again, thank you to Yuda for joining us today. Thank you to Joe for co-hosting. And I hope everybody is tuning in and enjoying their week and has a great rest of it. So enjoy your rest of your day, guys, and have a good one.
Thanks again, Joe and Joe.
Thank you to both. Thanks, Yuda.